Every once in a while, you just have to take stock in how wildly privileged that we actually are today. And it doesn't matter. I mean, even in almost all of the most desolate countries and the worst situations, if you were to look at just numerically for almost everybody across the world, there's only a few places now. Usually it's some sort of war-torn country. Usually it's run by a dictator. Um, Most places around the world now, a lot of people have gotten out of poverty, and it's really remarkable. And you have to take stock in how privileged that we actually are as a people. And, you know, yesterday, sorry, I didn't have the energy. I was a little ill. So I didn't say anything. Didn't didn't share anything. But yesterday was Remembrance Day or Veterans Day or Armistice Day, depending on what country that you live in. And my grandpa actually fought in the Second World War, and um, he did the whole shebang. Went from Normandy to Germany. Walked the whole thing and was there the whole time in the Canadian side. So they were there a little longer than, that they tended to be in the war effort a little longer um, than the Americans. But when I take stock and I look at old photos of my grandparents, um, even my great grandparents, there's not a few photos of them, but there's one or two. And, I take stock of where they were and what they had to do. And even my parents, situations that they had to grow up in. And I look at where we are today, and it's such a different world in so many respects. Right. I want you to realize just how fundamentally different it actually is. And the only way that you could see how fundamentally different it is so every 30 years, roughly, there's like the 30 years before that are unimaginable. Like people could not imagine what it would be like today. And if you go back 60, 90 years, it's it's a completely different world. I want you to really, if you ever get a chance, you spend some time looking at charts and things like that. I want you to look at, poverty rates or the number of countries that were run by dictators or, that were not democracies or some form of democracy. The number of people that were, that they were in a very corrupt country or just any number of different indicators, dire poverty, right? Like the worst of the worst. And you'll see that across the world, these numbers have been dropping. And the world we live in is not the same. It's different, right? Like when my grandpa went to war, I want you to understand what it was like. This is why I think it's a little. I mean, the things we go through, yes, there are weird things that one doesn't like. Let's just say that. But if you take a step back and you look at what it was like in World War II, um, it was a hell of a time. Like a significant portion in between World War I and World War II. That's a matter of a span of like 20 years. I guess yeah, 20 years, a little over 20 years. A significant portion of the men in this world and children and women um, died. Right, like young people died. A significant portion of them. A lot of people did. And it was nothing for people to just hurt other people, like outright just do things that are really nasty, right? And normal everyday people were doing these things. And I want you to really take a step back and say how far we've come. I always am grateful with the work that has been done, sort of privilege that I live in today, that we all live in. If you're listening to this, you're absolutely privileged. Um, do I think that things can be better? Absolutely. There's always room, right? There's always something. But man, we live in such a privileged world. And I'm just every day absolutely grateful for everything. I look at what my grandpa went through, and it wasn't what he went through that was the sacrifice. It was everything else after it. It was all those memories that haunted him. And I'm gonna tell you this, we know they haunted him, um, for a lot of different reasons, and he was not unusual. I want you to just be grateful. Be grateful for the world we live in. And I'm gonna say all the time, right? Like this channel, what I talk about, it's never about, the world's falling apart. Hopefully that's not what I'm communicating. But it's A, we have problems, B, and we can change those for the better if we simply set our heads to it. We have a little bit of rose-colored glasses and we just get going. I think that's ultimately part of that is taking a step back and reflecting just how privileged that we live. We all live privileged lives. Man, we're just so lucky. All right. Take care. Have a wonderful day.